Honey, we need to chat.
Hello.
Well, I was halfway through a yawn. Hello. Welcome to another chat
Another chit-chat.
on Honey.
Chit-Chat.
We need to chat.
This is a bit of a different intro because we were just I was just editing next week's episode and realized that
We did a boo-boo.
we made a boo-boo. And
big
you can
boo-boo.
literally see it in the video. I'll make a reel out of it eventually. We just knock the mic out,
And my cord.
mic cord out as we moved things around. And then the rest of the video is recorded on Blair's laptop's
Microphone.
sound. So it's not great quality.
But it's great
It's a great conversation.
experience.
It's a great experience. We'll learn and we'll become better from it. But
Yeah.
we thought we don't want to lose the conversation because it is a really important conversation. We recognize that the sound quality is probably going to not be great for everybody. So if it's something that just is too irritating to listen to, that's totally fair enough. But we wanted to hop on and do a little intro anyway in our normal setup with our normal sound to just ease you in, give it a little bit of normalcy, and then just let you know what's coming up. It's a great conversation. We talk all about love languages, and we're going to be diving into those over the next few weeks anyway, a bit further. But please do stay tuned for the rest of the episode because it is worth it. But apologies ahead of time. We won't make that mistake again. To ease us into the episode, we thought we would do one chat jar question extra. So,
Hit me.
what moment in our relationship do you think about when you need to feel happy?
Definitely the morning after our wedding. Like that specifically was amazing.
Yeah.
That morning, like that moment when you wake up, you're like, oh man, I've got nothing to organize. I've got nowhere to be. I've got nothing to worry about. Because we had a day, or like a night, two nights in St. Kilda. And we had, on that second day, we had nothing to do. And it was amazing.
We were so tired.
Yep.
And we were married. Nice.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's what I
good.
think of. What do you think of?
I think the first days in the hospital after all of our kids,
Oh, really?
which Blair doesn't love, like in terms of the discomfort and stress
well, just
and
the
that kind of thing, but-
experience. So, like, first one was emergency cesarean.
Yeah.
Like, all of them have been cesareans. It's not been comfortable.
Yeah.
For me.
For me, that's been the gross. No, I could relive the first day of meeting our babies over and over and over. If that's all it meant to have more kids, I would have that moment over and over.
Really?
That's the best moments of my life. Yeah.
That's cool.
Meeting our new little buddies.
Yeah. And they keep waking up tonight, so they're not so good
not so little
buddies right
buddies.
now.
Well, we hope you enjoy this episode. You'll magically see Blair's beard grow back in a minute.
Yep.
So, magic. But it is a really great conversation and an important conversation. So we hope you stick around.
Check it out.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
This week, we have a really interesting topic, something that's been really impactful for us, which is the 5 love languages. The 5 love languages was created by Dr. Gary Chapman. He is, they say here, he is the one who originated the love language concepts. And it's been a tool that's been incredibly helpful for us in understanding ourselves and in understanding our partner, how we love, how we receive love. It's not something that is set in stone. It's not a box that you fall into and then that's what it is. It's something that's actually changed for us over time too. So it's not a prescription. It's just a tool that's been really helpful for us. So we wanted to share about it here because we think that lots of people can benefit from.
Because we definitely have.
We've benefited huge. Even just having it as a vague understanding of how someone might be working, even outside of our marriage. I've found at times where I'm like thinking about a friend or a workmate or even our kids as well.
I was going to say, even trickling down to our kids now, we're starting to have that focus.
Exactly. And a lot of people have heard of 5 love languages. It's not a new concept, but we thought we would just kind of dive into it a little bit because of how impactful it's been to us.
Yeah. And this is not a sponsored episode by 5 love languages at all. Again, this is just something that we found helpful for that check-in time and starting the conversation. Like, we get a lot of people write in, how do you start the conversation? And it's like, well, you need to build that environment. You need to build that into the culture of your relationship. I don't think you can just start a conversation because that's when walls go up and everything. So we want to encourage you guys, do this together, date night, just go to 5lovelanguages.com and do the free quiz or the paid one. We've got the extended, the full kit and caboodle here that we'll be going through. We're going to be going through this over a couple of episodes. We won't go through it in all today, but we're going to break down the overall, what we've got from it, and so forth.
Before we do, I'm going to ask a chat jar question.
And I'm also going to answer the door because our daughter's knocking on it.
Okay. Last time we did a chat jar, it turned into a big discussion that we didn't include on the episode.
And you'll never know.
You'll never know. It wasn't that big of a deal, but just something that was a bit unfamiliar. So hopefully that doesn't happen again today. If we were to start a business together, what would it be and why?
I think we should start a podcast. It's not really business because it could be
down the track.
Yeah. No, well, our dream is that this podcast is one of the things that we do in this area. So our dream is that one day we'll put together a retreat for couples to come and explore relationships and communication together. That's a dream that we have. So that's the business that I want to do. I would love to do public speaking stuff. I'd love to do other things around this area. Maybe books one day.
Maybe multiple.
Now
that we've got ChatGPT.
Yeah, exactly.
If we were to answer this outside of Honey, We Need to Chat, we actually talk about business stuff all the time together because we both kind of have just a bit of Blake's really strategic and I tend to be creative. So we kind of just naturally work this way. I think if we were to create a business outside of Honey, We Need to Chat, it would be something along the lines of communications and marketing, which I already have dabbled in.
Yeah.
And Blair would absolutely be my strategist.
Well, taking care of the business side, which is what I'm kind of doing with the podcast as well.
Exactly.
And where you're driving the majority of the content and what we discuss, because that's just your strength.
Well, I'm going to ask another one because that was super quick and not controversial at all.
Yeah.
Come on, Amy.
Because conversation needs to be controversial.
It does need to be. If it's not controversial, is it even conversation? Okay, what is one thing you wish you knew about each other before we started dating? It's an interesting question. We didn't know a lot about each other before we started dating. And I'm not sure there's much that we didn't know, any big surprises that came up after dating that we hadn't at least vaguely touched on beforehand. Do you have anything?
I got nothing.
I think that the question would probably be better, what's something that we wish we knew about ourselves before we started dating?
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that.
And for me, it would be, I think I wish I had a better understanding of what my experiences were going to bring into the relationship.
Yeah.
My anxieties. I mean, I did know a bit of that, but I didn't necessarily kind of understand how impactful that would be in how I react to you or how I react to scenarios. I wish I had a better understanding of that.
I think the thing that comes to my mind is the impact of the burnout that I had, and it's not that I wish I knew I would have a burnout, but I wish I was more intentional about being prepared for mental health. And just the awareness of mental health and everything. Because again, I've mentioned in other episodes, I just didn't get it when people struggle with mental health because I just hadn't had that experience until my burnout. And now it's been for the last 5 years, a very intense lesson I've been learning. But it's been kind of a shock of what's happening? What's going on? Why am I reacting this way? So I think just the awareness around it to start with, and which is what we're wanting to do with this podcast and also what we're doing with my job. So,
you could probably also add to that, the cost of pushing yourself too hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I think a lot of people do. And even for me, I feel the same. Not that I've necessarily burnt out like you, but just the cost of pushing so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you don't really learn that until after.
Yeah, exactly.
Hindsight 2020.
2024.
2024. Hindsight 2024. Maybe 2024 should just be called hindsight.
Good one.
For the whole world. All right. Thanks. Good chat, Joe.
Cool. All right. So we're going to dive into the 5 love languages. So how it actually works, you just go onto the website, like I've said earlier, and it takes you through a quiz. And it's just, you sort of select 1 or 2, and it gives you a bunch of different scenarios. Do you feel love more this way or this way out of that scenario? Next question, this way or this way. Next question, you keep going on until you're finished. And then it'll come up with different results. So the 5 love languages are gift giving, like how do you receive, gift giving, words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, words of affirmation.
You already said that.
Did I?
Yeah.
What?
Gift giving, quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch, and acts of service.
Acts of service. That's the one. Yeah, cool. I'm like,
Words of affirmation, words of affirmation.
yeah.
The one I don't like.
Yeah,
Advice.
exactly. So it shows you, and then it shows you through like, all right, so you're really high on this one, and you really in these is where the other ones sit. This is one that you're low on. And then it gives an explanation through, like, so what does that mean to you? And we're going to break that down a little bit today, just what it means for us and what we've learned from that. This assessment.
Concept. Oh, yeah.
Assessment and others have been really, really valuable to us as a couple, but also me as an individual. For a lot of these questions, I went through this test twice, and the first time I kind of just went through and answered the questions, and I realized, I don't know if that's accurate, like the end result, I don't know if that's accurate. And so I went through and did it again. And I really sat through and thought about the questions beforehand. And I put myself into scenarios. So for example, there was a question, something like, how do you feel more loved if you wrote me a note or got me a gift? And I had to really think about that. I'm like, words of affirmation is my lowest by far, by the way. I'm just not a words guy. But I really had to think through, how do I actually feel in the moment when Amy's done that? But also, it's not even just, is it a gift? It's kind of what type of gift? And that's other questions that come into it as well, which is good too, because it helps me then, one, identify that for myself, but then through the conversation that we have when we unpack it, is now you know that about me.
Yeah.
So I can say, look, my love language is gifts, which it is, and you go out and buy me a new car. Well, that's going to be freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool. but is that going to be really meeting me where I'm at?
Yeah.
Like, what is it about the gift that makes me feel loved?
Yeah.
What is it about the words that makes you feel loved, and so forth? And that's been really, really powerful for me.
And that's actually what happened, because at the beginning of our relationship, I knew gifts were a thing. And for me, that's because gifts weren't a thing for me at that stage. So I was just like, okay, gifts. But it's not just any gift. It's a gift that shows I've thought about you.
Yeah.
It's really impactful.
So what we'll do now, we'll just share our results.
Yep.
We won't dive too much into them, but maybe we can just explain what those results mean to us.
Yeah. Great.
So you start
first.
Yeah.
Cool. So my top result, which has stayed fairly stable, consistent through since I've known myself, is words of affirmation. That was 75%. So in the most preferred zone. My second result is receiving gifts, which was really surprising to me, because I think the first time we did this, that was the lowest.
Yeah.
That's why when we got together, I was like, oh my gosh, gifts are just so outside of my...
But in that too, like, I remember, because Christmas would stress you out.
Stress me.
Because you're like, what do I get? Like, what do I get? And again, this is the process of learning me, for myself too, because I didn't know how to articulate to you as well what sort of gifts I want, right? But yeah, so that was really helpful, was to unpack that, and you started having more confidence in the gifts that you get.
Yeah, I honed that skill.
Slammed.
The third one is quality time. That's at 50%, and that's not surprising as well. That's always been up the top for me. Then acts of service is number 4, and that's one of the highest for Blair, or at least was. I don't know if it still is. And that, again, was a mismatch for us. That specific one was like, oh my gosh, I don't find that a loving gesture. I don't find it unloving. I just don't find it special.
No.
And he does. So how do I navigate that? And the lowest is physical touch at 25%. And I think that was up closer to the top when I first did it too. So this result has been really interesting for me, because it's shifted a lot since we first did it, except for a few. And something that we've learned along the way, which I'm assuming we'll probably dive into a bit later more, is your love languages, when you complete a quiz, it's probably going to look different depending on how much of something you're receiving.
It's called your love tank.
Your love tank. Yeah.
So I'll break into that in a minute.
Awesome. Yeah. So how full that is in that area and how not full that is. So physical touch. I have 4 children and a husband.
You're always
and
touched.
a dog. And I have, been pregnant and breastfeeding for the last like 6 years on and off. 7 years.
7 years, yeah.
So I'm not in any way lacking in that sphere. In fact, if anything, I'm just like, please,
Space.
do not touch me.
Give me space.
Espacio, por favor. So yeah, that's why I think that's going to drop down. Whereas gifts is not something other than Christmas. It's not something, because I've never had it as a priority. It's not something that's been a priority in terms of communication of people's love and your love. So I think that's probably a lower tank at this stage than the rest of them are.
Yeah, so a love tank, and this is the cool thing too, is and this is where you don't have to do the quiz every time, but this is just to check in, right? So it's like, how is your love tank at the moment? How are you going in these areas? Because these change, right? Because it's like I can focus. My lowest, I'll just jump straight to that, is words of affirmation. But what we've identified, if I get no affirmation, I don't feel loved, so it's not saying like I never have to worry about that. It's actually like it's much faster to fill my affirmation tank than my gifts tank. You know what I mean? So, and the impact is different as well. So we still have to be looking at that. How am I, how am I affirming you? Am I ever touching you? You know what I mean? Like that's your lowest, but if I never touch you, you're going to feel something off. If I never hear words from you of affirmation, it's going to feel off, right? So this is a thing. And even through these results, we unpack more because the results aren't 100% accurate, because I'll be like, actually, I feel this is a little bit different, or this is a little bit different. What this is doing is helping facilitate the conversation. So making that really clear. Okay, so mine. Receiving gifts is the top one. This was a hard one for me to first find out when we first did it. It hasn't changed. Because I'm like, I just feel greedy and like selfish, right? I just want things. And it was really, really funny. My favorite gift that Amy has got me is literally this mug. It's a Mandalorian mug, coffee mug, right? Now, I am not really a Star Wars fan. I wasn't really a Star Wars fan until The Mandalorian came out. I just really liked that show. I was just a big fan, and that was my Star Wars journey where it began.
That's fair.
Right? But even, I'm still not a massive fan of the movies. But anyway, Amy went out one day and she just came back with this mug. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't Christmas or anything else like that. She had just gone out and got me this mug. And for me, this is actually, out of all the gifts that she's gotten me that are way more expensive than this is my most cherished present gift, because it was so, I'm getting a little emotional. It was really thoughtful, it's just like she's gone out and she's thought of me, and it's like it's nothing major. It's just the thought behind it, and that was the best thing. So the way that it is sort of explained is it's a token of her love for me, and so I drink out of this the most. It's got a chip in it, and
he's refusing to get rid of it.
I'm refusing to get rid of it because it's just a cup. But for me, when I drink out of this, I think of you, and that's why this is so special to me. Whew.
Oh, baby.
Breathe up. Whew.
Don't buy your spouse a Mandalorian.
So receiving gifts. So that's my top one. My next one is quality time. So, and this was when I first did the first quiz, this was actually my highest. And it wasn't that I thought it was off, but I started thinking through, I'm like, no, I just love doing stuff with you. So it was different. The way that I receive a gift is different to the way that I feel when we spend time together. I love spending time with you. And there's actually no one that I want to spend time with more than I want to spend time with you. If we go on an adventure, I want you there. If I'm doing something fun, I want you there. One of the questions was, I can't remember the alternative, but it was something like, "Oh, but you find interest in the things that I'm doing," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's that. I really, really enjoy that." But what I feel when you've got me like a mug is different to when we're just hanging out and we're doing stuff together. I just want you there all the time. It's just like the love feeling is different, but it's still very, very high for me. The next one is acts of service. It's lower than quality time. I think quality time is up higher now because I think that's just something that we do. Like we do a lot of stuff together, and I love that.
But I was thinking about quality time because mine has dropped down. I think we do a lot of stuff together. So we work from home, both of us. So we are always together, which is awesome. I love that. And I don't know how we'd go if that changed. I don't know how I'd go if that changed. But we don't get as much one-on-one quality time. So I reckon that's why quality time's up higher for you at the moment. Because yes, we do spend time together all the time, but we don't get much time compared to like even 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We don't actually get much one-on-one time anymore.
Well, they're very close. Active service and quality time are very close. And I think the reason is, so it was up higher last time.
Yeah.
And I think the reason actually it's lower now is because this podcast.
Yeah.
So we're getting, this is very, very quality time for me. And the conversations that we've had outside of these podcasts, like continuing on from these episodes, is really quality. Our conversations are really quality. The way that we discuss stuff, disagree, workshop things together is very quality. But I think the reason why it's still up there is because it's very serious quality time. Yeah. And we're lacking the fun, adventurous quality time. So that's true too. Yeah. So active service, that's just been one. I just, I love the way that you love your family, but what you do. You know, that's something that even I know the kids appreciate that. They even say like, "Oh, Mum, thank you for making dinner." Like that sort of stuff is really, really cool. Physical touch, for me, it's actually quite close to words of affirmation. I think physical touch, because obviously not as much as you, but having 4 kids and a dog, you're always touched. Our baby at the moment is always waiting to be held and things. So I think we're just very touched in a nice way, but it's just not it's not empty. It's not an empty way. And words of affirmation, like we said, I'm just not a words guy, but if I don't get words, I'll struggle. I just won't feel loved. So, yeah. So with the love tank as well, it talks about we're wanting to create a culture in our relationship where we can communicate, right? And we can work on these things. And when our tanks are empty, the communication's a lot harder. So this is what's really cool is when we start off with a test like this, like what we've done, or other quizzes, whatever you want to do, it helps facilitate the conversation when we can get a more of a gauge of like, how do you receive love? Like, how do I best show you that I love you, and how do I receive it too? Because we need to be able to have that conversation, or we need to be able to communicate to each other through love. It really helps bring those walls down. It gives you that conversation starting point, and from there, over time, we can learn to communicate better because it's not just about the conversation, it's about how you're feeling in that moment too. If you're not feeling loved and I come to you with a topic that's hard to talk about, your reaction is going to be a lot more heartfelt and hurt, possibly, because you're already not feeling loved by me. So this is really important to help set that tone and set that scene. You're learning more about each other, learning how to love each other, and the conversations are easier to have from that place. And there's another part too. It sort of assesses how you're going. They call it your love skills, right? So they break it down into 3 different categories. So how good you are with listening, showing empathy, and being curious. So your curiosity.
Is that in the large test?
This is in the large test. And the deeper test, so the full test. And these are especially curiosity is something that we continually try and encourage. Be curious, don't just be like, oh, cool, good for you, man. But be curious about your partner, be curious about yourself, try and understand more and show empathy towards, the struggles that we have and the differences that we have and so forth, and really listening through those things, which is really cool. We're not going to break down into that. Again, this is more of an overview episode. It's something to encourage you guys to do together as a couple. One big thing, there's this quote, there's this old proverb, it's old Hebrew proverb. It says, life and death is in the power of the tongue. We can kill a relationship by the way we talk to each other, or we can give a relationship life. And I would actually, so I can really hurt you by what I say, but I can actually make you feel very loved, whether your love language is words or not. But I'd say with a lot of things too is that what can kill a relationship is if you just don't feel loved. So that's, again, a very important thing about quizzes like these, or very helpful things, is that if you don't feel love from me, the relationship's going to really, really suffer and struggle.
Yeah. And I've heard this actually quite a few times where there's this kind of argument of like, I don't feel loved. And then the other person's like, but I am loving you.
Yeah.
And it's just a mismatch of understanding what that means. And can feel like such an attack from either side. And it can feel like you're being dismissed as well. Because you can say, I don't feel loved. And the other person's like, I am loving you.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, you're not listening to me.
Well, and that's actually really key, because when we first did this, it was an eye-opener for me, because I've got words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And you are.
Yeah.
I would always try and get you stuff to show my love for you. But it just wasn't like scratching your itch or whatever you call it. And it wasn't meeting where you need to be met. And that was just such an eye-opener for me, because it was actually so hard for me to do words of affirmation, because it's my lowest.
Yeah.
So it's not natural. I had to learn, and we've worked over the years on what that can look like. But even doing this again, I've been really challenged. And I've seen you do this with the kids. You'll put little notes in the kids' lunchboxes and stuff to say, I love you. And it's been such a conviction to me. I'm like, I stopped doing that for you. I remember I started when we first did this, putting notes on the mirror and stuff for you, like randomly, and I just haven't done that. And I'm like, oh man, that's good. I love checking in on this again, because I know that I want you to feel like that I adore you. And not that I don't tell you, not that I don't do things for you, not that I, any of those things, but I don't go out of my way for the area that hits you the most, and that's been a big conviction for me. So I really want to work on that and get better at that. And this has been great to review that and to check in on that.
And I think as a couple, just having a check-in time where you can be like, because we've said as it morphs and changes, it's not always just going to be linear. So having a check-in time and be like, what would be the most loving thing for you? It doesn't have to be right now. It's not like you're saying, what can I say to you right now that's going to make you feel loved? And then that person has to come up with something, and then that person says it, and it's like, well, that doesn't feel sincere. But just being like checking in so that you can kind of have a lens to look at the next little time, whatever time that might be, in how to like show your love when you do have those moments of, because everybody has those moments where you reflect and you're like, oh, I love my spouse, and it'll come out in some way. But I think having a more targeted way to address that would be really helpful.
Yeah.
On our subscriptions, which we've decided to call our chatters.
Our chatters.
Thanks to feedback from our chatter.
Thanks, chatters.
Guys, we're going to dig a little deeper into the extended version of this quiz. And it's really cool because it breaks down each one of the things. And one example being that there's like on receiving gifts, for example, it's not just receiving gifts. This one has a chart and it shows you, is it practical or is it heartfelt? Is it extravagant or is it simple? And it shows you kind of where your results land on there. And that was really helpful for me because I was like, gifts, that's weird. But then when I saw my chart, it was like, oh, that makes sense. We're going to dig a little deeper on the chatters episode there, and also just kind of do a little check-in, as we've kind of suggested to you guys, with ourselves on how we're feeling in this area. So if you're interested in that, hop on over to that and have a look. We've got extra.
Become a chatter.
Become a chatter.
It actually helps us out a lot too, guys. Really helps us. So we'd love your support in that area too.
Yeah. I just thought as we were wrapping up a little bit, one thing that we had suggested to us, I think it was in our premarital counseling, was to literally, and I know it sounds corny, but when it comes to strengthening your marriage, sometimes the corny, simple things that seem prescriptive are actually really helpful. So the suggestion was you write a list of things that you find really impactful that make you feel loved, and you just put it on your fridge. So you've got a list for both of you. And it's like, I love getting flowers. I do not like getting flowers, but if someone wanted to, they could have it on there. Or I love when you bring me coffee in bed, or I love when you surprise me with breakfast out or something like that. And you just have a list that you've thought of outside of the moment. You're not trying to say to your partner that they haven't been doing these things. It's just a neutral moment where you're listing these things, and you have it somewhere where you can see it regularly, and you can, as individuals, check on it every now and then when you're like, oh, have I done any of these things recently? No, maybe I can do that. So that's a good option that I think would be really helpful. And even for us, it might be helpful. We haven't done that yet, but I think it's a good suggestion. And the other thing that we've alluded to a few times on the podcast is setting these kind of conversations can be hard to just dive right into. If it's not how you're normally talking, if it's not kind of the culture you have within your relationship, it can be hard to find a time to get real deep about stuff like this, or to even suggest doing this stuff together. And so we've alluded to, and we're going to continue to do so because it's really helpful, setting aside a time every week that you can check in, so that you know that that check-in time is there. It can be weekly, fortnightly if you need it to be, but just a time at home. It's not, you don't have to go out and make it anything expensive or extravagant. Just a check-in time that you set aside intentionally to spend time together. Make it special in some way. Make a hot chocolate, or have dessert together, or something like that. Set the mood, like your home date nights that we've suggested, and have a list of things that you check in on weekly, so that instead of feeling this urgency throughout the week to bring something up because it's hurt you, or to bring something up that you want to do as a relationship and just feeling uncomfortable about it because that's not how you normally talk, you know that there's this time every Monday night at 7:30 after the kids are in bed that we intentionally sit down and we literally ask each other, do you have anything you want to talk about? So it eases that stress a bit. And I feel like doing something like this, if this is a concept that you're like, I would love to do this, but my partner would be weirded out if I suggested it, don't feel like you have to start by being like, I think we need to get really deep. And we're never deep, but we're just going to do this now. Instead, start by suggesting that you have that time set aside so that you can communicate what you need to. They've got a time to communicate what they need to. You're outside of all the emotions because it's not live. It's not something you have to respond to in the time. And you can start bringing things in like the love languages and other concepts, other helps, resources that might help. You can start bringing those into those nights as well. And if you've already got something in place like that, where you've done the 5 love languages and you're just not feeling like you're meeting each other's needs in that area, having that check-in points is really helpful, so that it's not just, oh, we've done the test, now we know what we are. We're just going to leave it forever because that's who we are and we're in a box. Like, that's not how we work as humans, and it's not how relationship works. So just having that kind of point where you feel able to do it without it being super uncomfortable, I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's my suggestion to you.
Great. Take it or leave it.
So this is 5 love languages.
It is. So we'll be digging into each love language as we go in other episodes. But this is just an overview, share what it is, and just encourage you to check it out, or other quizzes and assessments. Yeah. Again, it's about being intentional and providing resources that help start a conversation or facilitate conversation.
Yeah. And if you approach it with curiosity, I don't think it can harm. Open mind, curiosity, and the intention to love each other better, I think it's a really helpful tool, regardless of if it's mind-blowing to you or not.
Yeah.
So to finish us off, ChatGPT, I have a different format today because I said to ChatGPT, and I am suspicious, so we need your feedback on this. I said, ChatGPT, give us an outro that Gen Z speak, is what I said.
In Gen
Z speak. And they gave me an outro. I don't believe it. So then I asked another one. I said, make it more Gen Z. And to be honest, it sounds like a boomer trying to talk in Gen Z. So it's ChatGPT, not me.
Is a boomer.
Younger people, which we've had a bit of a boost in recently, younger people in those generations, does this translate?
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
To this.
Yeah. So here we go. And that's the tea, fam. We've spilled all the deets in today's sesh, so don't ghost us. Hit up that subscribe button if you want to stay in the loop with all our real talks. Slide into our DMs with your stories, with a Z, because we legit love hearing from you. Keep those combos going, keep it 100, and remember, good vibes only. Catch you on the flip side. Peace out.
So I talk to my friends.
Yeah, well, then I said to it, don't believe you. Make it more Gen Z / Gen Alpha, and this is what I came up with. And yo, that's the Stitch squad. We've just dropped all the juicy deets, and you got to keep this vibe alive. Smash that subscribe to stay on this wild ride with us. Slide into our DMs or hit us up with your own stories, because your voice is key. It's got that in quotation marks. Keep it 100 in an emoji, not the word 100, just an emoji. Roll with the good vibes, and yo, don't be a stranger. Catch you later, fam. Out.
Chat out.
I don't believe ChatGPT on either of these. But let us know.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys.
Chat out.